While this podcast isn't rated explicit, the content may not be suitable for younger listeners. Welcome to Sex for Saints, the Christian couple's guide to great sex. I'm your host, certified sex and marriage coach, Amanda Lauder. This is episode 369. Are you initiating too much? Welcome to Sex for Saints, a podcast for Christian couples. My goal with this podcast is to help enlighten, educate, and inspire you to understand yourself, your spouse, and your sexuality better. I talk about sex in a way you probably haven't heard before. I'm bold, I'm direct, but I keep everything in line with my strong Christian values. Are you ready? Let's go. Hello, my friends. Welcome back to the podcast. Have you ever wondered if you're initiating too much? This might sound like a strange question, especially when we're always told that healthy sexual relationships need communication, courage, and yes, initiation. But it's something that comes up all the time in my coaching. Often it's the higher desire partner asking, if I don't initiate, it never happens, so I keep initiating. But it feels like I'm carrying all the weight and I'm tired of being rejected. I want to feel wanted and desired too. What am I supposed to do? So let's unpack that today, why we initiate, what happens when we do it frequently, and whether pulling back might be helpful or harmful. So first, let's talk about why we initiate. There are a lot of really good reasons to initiate sex. Sometimes we're feeling close to our partner and we want to deepen that bond. Sometimes we're just turned on and we want to share that experience. Or maybe we're trying to connect after a rough week. We getting on the same page emotionally or express love in a way that feels really natural. All of those are valid, healthy motivations. Initiation is a normal, important part of the sexual relationship. But there can also be some not so great reasons too. Maybe you're initiating because you feel anxious about the state of your relationship and are trying to use sex to fix it. Maybe you feel unloved or unattractive and you want your spouse to validate you through sex. Or maybe you're initiating because you think it's the only way sex will happen at all and you're afraid of what it means if it doesn't. So one woman I worked with said, I initiate almost every time. He never seems interested unless I do, but now I kind of dread it. I don't want to feel rejected again, but I also don't want to go weeks without any physical connection. That kind of stuck place is really more common than you think. So what happens when we initiate a lot? When you initiate frequently, yes, you probably have more sex than if you didn't. That part is usually true. But here's the kicker. More sex doesn't always mean better sex or connected sex or mutual desire. When one person is always initiating, it can start to feel really one-sided. The higher desire partner often starts to feel like the chaser, while the other person feels like they're always being chased. And even if they say yes, it may not come from a place of genuine self-generated desire. It's often more of a passive, I guess so, or yeah, okay, instead of a yes, I want this. And over time, that can build resentment on both sides. The initiator starts to feel unwanted and unimportant, and the spouse on the receiving end feels a lot of pressure, like there's this constant expectation hanging over them that they can never quite meet. So I had a couple I worked with where the husband said, I initiate almost every day, and she turns me down most of the time. But when she does say yes, it feels like pity. I'm getting sex, but I'm not getting the connection that I actually want. And his wife said, I feel like I don't even have a chance to want it. The second I relax, he's reaching for me. I feel like I can never just be without him asking for sex. So I avoid him, which I know just makes it worse. So I want to be really clear here. I am not saying that you should suppress your sexuality if you're the higher desire partner. Being honest about your sexual desire is healthy and important. You should be able to want sex, to talk about sex and express that to your spouse. But if you're constantly initiating, it may not be creating the space your spouse needs to build their own desire. Desire isn't just about opportunity. It's about autonomy and freedom. When your spouse always knows that you will take the lead, they may never have to wrestle with their own longing. They don't have the space to miss sex, to think about it, to decide they want to pursue you. Sometimes desire has to have a little room to breathe. I just wanted to give you a quick reminder. My 3-week live class for couples, Cleave, Counsel, and Laboring Together is coming up soon, and spots are filling fast. If you want to learn how to apply the principles of your temple covenants to build a stronger, more intimate marriage, this class is for you. You'll get weekly instruction, live coaching, and practical tools to help you and your spouse cleave to one another, counsel as equals, and labor side by side in your relationship. The class starts June 23rd and from 7 to 9 p.m. And we also have classes on June 30th and July 7th. It's $399 for the live class plus coaching. But if you sign up by June 1st and use the code MARRIAGEEARLYBIRD25, you can receive $50 off. Space is limited, so don't wait because it is filling up quickly. Head to amandalauder.com/strengthen to grab your spot now. So when this dynamic is occurring, often a common strategy that I hear is, well, I'm just going to stop initiating. I'm done. I'm putting the ball in their court. Now, this can be helpful or it can completely backfire, depending on the spirit that it's done in. So if you're doing it as a punishment or a power move, like, haha, let's see how you like it now, it's likely to build more distance. The relationship can start to feel very adversarial. You're both wanting and waiting on the other to prove something, and no one is being emotionally vulnerable. But if you're stepping back with a spirit of curiosity, what would happen if I gave them the space to choose? Am I willing to sit in the discomfort of not always being in control? Then something new can begin. Now, it's hard because it means facing the fear that maybe sex won't happen or that your spouse won't step into that space and initiate. But it also opens the door to more honest conversations about the dynamic that you're both caught in. So what if you pull back and nothing changes? This is probably the hardest part. You stop initiating, hoping that your spouse is going to rise to the occasion, and they don't. Maybe it's days, maybe weeks, even months that go by, and nothing happens. What then? I was actually just this morning reading a Facebook post about a man who had decided to step back, not from a place of punishment, but to give his spouse space to create that desire. Now, unfortunately, this wife has not stepped up. She has not initiated once in 6 months that it's been since he initiated. And he's like, what do I do now? I gave her the space and nothing's happening. She says that when I initiate, it feels like pressure. So she doesn't want me to initiate, but yet she doesn't initiate either. And I think she's actually realizing that something is fundamentally wrong, but I don't know what to do. Well, I think it's really important that you first let yourself feel what you need to feel. And that might be grief, sadness, disappointment, loneliness. Those are real and valid. And then I want you to ask yourself, is my spouse aware of what's happening? Like, have I actually stepped back and I told them I'm stepping back and why? Or have I just withdrawn silently and hoped that they'd notice? You know, for this man and this woman, he did tell her, but she hasn't stepped up, right? But I think a really good place is to start by saying something like, I realize that I've been doing most of the initiating and I've decided to pull back, not to punish you, but to give you space to figure out what you want. I want to understand what's going on for you. I miss feeling desired, and I want us both to show up fully in this part of our relationship. And by doing that kind of conversation, you're not playing a game. You're being vulnerable and collaborative. That hopefully opens up a dialogue, which is the first step toward change. Now, if your spouse still doesn't show up like this woman, then it's time to explore why. Is there unresolved hurt, mismatched beliefs about sex, lack of emotional connection, shame or anxiety that they don't know how to articulate, good girl syndrome? That's where coaching or therapy can be incredibly helpful. There's healing that needs to take place. So for this particular woman, she has a belief that good girls don't initiate. And so that tells me that healing needs to take place for her, but probably also in the relationship as well. So if you are initiating from a place of love and desire and connection, and your spouse is receiving it well, then, you're probably not initiating too much. But if you're initiating because you feel like you have to, or because you're terrified nothing is going to happen if you don't, or you're doing it from, those more immature places of wanting validation, that's when you have to pause and really reevaluate what's going on. Remember that a great sex life isn't just about how often it happens. It's about how honestly it's happening. It's about mutual desire, emotional safety, and creating space where both people feel empowered to show up fully. And sometimes that means that healing needs to happen within the relationship first. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is to not push harder, but to step back. Be honest about, what you want and desire in the relationship. Be honest about what you want to see from your spouse, and be willing to look at yourself and ways that you need to grow in addition to ways that maybe your spouse needs to grow, and create that space in your life and in your relationship where something new can grow. So hopefully you find that helpful. Thanks so much for joining me today. Remember, love is a journey, not a destination. Stay committed, stay passionate, and stay connected. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Like what you're hearing on this podcast? Make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. Don't forget to leave me a review and share it with your friends.